Hi, everyone. Welcome back from your breaks. My name is Elisa Werbler, and take this moment to settle back into your seats. So as you may have already gathered, today I'll be talking to you about things. I started the first class of the first semester of this program by creating this object. It's a blank tape measure intended to be filled with process and thoughts, designed to become greater in value over time. This thesis started with the question, how do we determine the value of our things? Is it monetary or sentimental or some hybrid of the two? I turned to world-renowned social psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who conducted an in-depth ethnographic study about people and their relationship to objects. And in his book, The Meaning of Things, he says, when someone invests psychic energy in an object, a thing, another person, or an idea, that object becomes charged with the energy of that agent. And I spoke with Rob Walker, journalist and co-author of the book Significant Objects, and at some point late into our conversation, he said, I'm surrounded by a room full of gift albatrosses, things that I have no use for and actually don't like, but I can't get rid of because of who gave them to me. That's an interesting thought, gift as guilt. So this thesis began with the goal of creating valuable connections with others using objects as a catalyst, and quickly shifted to the realization that we have too many things. So what I'll present to you today is an effort to create a culture of mindfulness in regards to material things, and I do so by challenging the value of our relationship to those things. If any of you read the New York Times, and I have a feeling that many of you do, you're probably bursting at the seams, holding back the question, have you read that book by that Japanese woman? This book by professional organizer Marie Kondo came out in the United States in October of 2014, exactly 1 month into this thesis. It made the bestseller list immediately and has remained there ever since. It instantly had a cult following, both here and internationally, and my favorite chapter is titled, Storage Experts Are Hoarders. Her unique methodology has people literally talking to their things, asking the question, does this spark joy? And I realized that it was about deciding what to keep, not deciding what to get rid of, and that there's a lot of added value in having less stuff. I created this set of decision dice early on in this thesis to help you question the value of each of your objects. Clutter can play a significant role in how we feel about our homes, our workplaces, and ourselves. Yet rarely is it recognized as a significant source of stress in our lives. And it's actually in our brains. Difficulty letting go of things triggers the same parts of the brain associated with psychological pain in many people, similar to the sensation of someone trying to quit smoking, which can be explained by the theory of loss-aversion. Created by psychologist Daniel Kahneman, the theory states that the pain of losing something valuable is greater than the pleasure of gaining something, which leads to the endowment effect, the notion that something is perceived as having greater value by you, the owner, than anyone else simply because it's yours. And this affects everyone differently. But we all fall somewhere in the spectrum between extreme hoarder and extreme minimalist. I wanted to test this theory with my classmates, so I stole something off of each of their desks to see if they would notice. If they did, they got it back, and if they didn't, I kept it. And the best response came from George in the form of an urgent department-wide email. From this experiment and all of my research, I realized that what we're dealing with is largely due to proximity. So with this in mind, I created a suite of offerings that speak to different parts of the process of letting go. Lossless, a platform to store your things both physically and digitally. Trappings, an application that helps you make tough decisions in the moment. And chain of custody, a physical intervention that takes on the challenge of addressing what happens to our things once we're gone. The first of these three deals with distance directly. I was determined to investigate my hypothesis that the closer our things are to us, the stronger we feel about them. And conversely, the farther away they are, the less mental energy they consume. So I thought about a place where our things go to be out of sight and out of mind. Storage units are this kind of interesting purgatory. We can hold on to things without having to expel a lot of mental energy because they're not in our immediate surroundings. We're in a constant feedback loop of things coming in and out of our lives, but that loop is often clogged. And so I created a service to help address this issue. I spoke to professional organizer Amelia Mina, and this particular quote really resonated with me. People pay hundreds of dollars a year in fees for a storage unit to hold on to a couch they don't need, but feel they haven't gotten the full value of yet. Even if the couch only costs a fraction of what they're paying for in storage, they don't calculate how much money they're losing. Which led me to the creation of Lossless. Lossless is a service that helps people uncover the true value of their things by temporarily or permanently removing those things from their possession. It's a platform that gives you the tools to create a digital archive of the things you can't quite let go of, but don't need lying around. Once archived, those items are removed from your home, and your things are then placed in an online database where others can view them and have the opportunity to make you an offer. If you decide to sell it, great. And if you decide it's time to let it go, Lossless will find a good home for those things. If not, your things will be returned to you after a designated period of time. However, as a Lossless customer, you aren't able to purchase anything until you've successfully gotten rid of a number of your own. And this is a huge opportunity, as the industry is on the rise. The storage industry has 48,500 locations in this country alone and generates $24 billion in revenue every year. While storage units are great for outdoor grills and winter gear, research shows that more and more they're just becoming a final resting place for the things we don't want but can't bear to toss. On a smaller scale, I wanted to take this service and prototype it in real life. This is Liz. Liz lives in her Brooklyn apartment with her fiance. They've been here for almost 6 years, and when I approached Liz about participating, she said yes with great enthusiasm. I've always wanted to do this, but I can't do it alone, she said. We went through a lot of things. And then we took those things from the lossless pile and began to inventory them, creating a unique page for each item. Then everything was boxed up and moved out. Reflecting on her experience, Liz said, having to write about everything was really difficult. After about 7 things, you start to realize that these things aren't really as important as you thought they were. And while I don't know the full outcome just yet, this approach using design-led research gave me huge insights into the efficacy of this process and how I could improve it, which leads me to my second offering. I wanted to create something to help people make decisions regularly in an effort to create positive habits and behaviors, to help battle the internal dialogue brewing in our minds as we deliberate on the status of our things. So to help you better understand how frequently and with what amount of enthusiasm you use your things or want to purchase something, I developed this mobile application called Trappings. It's based largely on the insight that sometimes people just need permission or a good push. So imagine this is what it looks like inside your head when you're going through the decision-making process as we enter into Trappings. Trappings uses information about yourself to provoke questions later on in the process. It works like a flowchart that takes you through a series of questions to lead you down an appropriate path. It's a little bit sassy, but very supportive. You start with leading questions such as, do I need this? Should I buy this? Is this a good gift? And so on. Imagine that acid wash denim jacket you've had in your closet for 15 years, and we'll click on the question, do I need this? which is followed by, do you love it? Which I do. But do I love it more than my oversized plaid shirt? Definitely not. Each question ends in a suggested call to action, and in this case, prompts me to place this item into my archive to soften the blow of its imminent departure. There's also a wish list feature, which keeps track of how long each item has been there and deters you from making unnecessary impulse purchases. And if you hadn't already noticed, the menu icon is a chest of drawers. So back to what it looks like inside the first question of, do I need this? Utter chaos and clutter, and here's the path we took to get there. So up until now, I've been talking to you about the things we interact with on our daily lives. But what about the things we leave behind? This last intervention, titled Chain of Custody, takes its form from evidence bags that would be used during an investigation. It's an opportunity to create physical evidence of the things that are most important to you, that signify what might be worth keeping when you're gone. Think of it as a living will for your things, no matter what the scale may be. So I'm not advocating for extreme minimalism and a rejection of things entirely. Honestly, I love things. I'm advocating for a more controlled, more curated collection where you get to experience the ones that really matter. And I believe that if we're more in touch with what we already have, we can be more mindful of what we let in. And I'll leave you with this quote from a duo that call themselves the Minimalists. It's much easier to see what's important when you get the excess stuff out of the way. A sunset is far more beautiful when you remove the blinders. Thank you.
I love the term chain of custody so much. You are wearing something today.
Yeah. Oh, this is my most prized possession. If I had to get rid of anything, it wouldn't be this. It was my grandmother. She gave it to me. My mom has one, and my sister has one. Actually, this one is my sister's. I borrowed it from her 15 years ago, and I never gave it back. But there's a funny story about the value of this thing. Everyone always asks me what stone it is, and I never had any idea. It's this like watery blue stone. And I was in Seattle about 6 years ago, and I was in a like gem store. It was like minerals, gems, rocks. And the owner came up, I think he was a wizard. He was like full denim on denim, like wiry gray hair. His name was probably Merlin or something.
Denim on denim is called a
Canadian tuxedo.
Yes. Canadians always tell you they're Canadian.
So he came up to me and was like, oh my God, like, can I take a look at that? So I gave it to him. He put it under a black light and he was like, whoa, this is like the rarest of sapphires. Like, holy crap.
Antiques Roadshow.
Right. So then I took it home and I went to an actual antiques appraiser, and he looked at it for like a millisecond. I was like, that's a piece of glass. Sorry. But it doesn't matter because I love it. So.
All right, so the second guy's an idiot.
Right?
Yeah. There is something unbelievably ironic about this thesis in this domain of design in this program, because our whole mandate is to like create things, right? So that's I think it's brave of you to even start this thing, knowing that it was likely to sort of at least process through or end in a kind of reduction, divestment. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's really interesting, especially for me. I come from a very strong making background, and I make things, and I like to make things. So I think part of the reason why I'm in this program is because I was starting to feel like I wasn't making important things, and I think this really kind of put a new lens on the things, thinking about the things that I'm making. And actually, Cameron Tonkinwise came and gave a guest lecture a few weeks ago about empowering designers to say no. And so I think I hadn't thought of it that way, I hadn't framed it like that, but I think in a way it's kind of my way of saying no to just like endless more.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some resonance there. One of my favorite things is your vacuum bag space bagging, and particularly the large objects. And so the irony is they look like they're worth more when they're in the bag, right? And so I think that probably took you by surprise. But they are really just quite like unbelievably beautiful. So when you were photographing these things, like what were you seeing? What were you feeling?
It was an interesting process, actually. Thank you to Steve and Jocelyn. It was their home. I waited till the very end to do the huge one because I didn't want them to like freak out that I was putting their furniture in bags.
Small.
But yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it in like creating these narratives where it's not just like one thing that lives on, but it's kind of constructing the whole story. So yeah, some people thought it was more precious and some people thought it was like creepy and weird and they wanted to get rid of it. So
Your framing of living will is actually quite beautiful for it. Yeah. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you.